All right. Am I in the picture? I can't see it. We'll hope that everything's good, right? And that's what we do is we hope everything's good in the world. Is it always good in the world? No. Sometimes there's some stuff going on that we can't control. There's a lot of things in the world that we can control if we just be self-responsible. And we can also learn to say no. We have public servants that are trying to push a perception of authority over us, and um, sometimes they're not realizing their limitations that have been placed upon them in where they have jurisdiction. And they have jurisdiction over commercial activity, but they don't have jurisdiction over free, independent, beautiful human beings, just like you, right? I mean, unless you harm somebody. If you harm somebody, then you've created a victim, and there's a crime that has likely been committed: assault, rape, murder, whatever, robbery. If you create a victim, or if you've created loss, you've created physical loss or a physical victim, then yeah, the policeman or the FBI agent or whoever, they can put hands on you, and they can put you in a cage, and they can hold you accountable for your actions. But if you're just living your life and you're traveling on the public rights of way, or you've purchased property, you've made a piece of this land yours, a private piece of property. There's a lot of power in that, and unfortunately, many people they're suffering their ignorance of their rights. Because you have rights. We all have rights. We have rights that are inalienable, unalienable, right? It means you can't take them away. Even if you have a costume or a badge or a title, or somebody somewhere else tells you to, you can't do it. Not legally. And if you do, if somebody's trying to take away your rights, you have the right to protect yourself with whatever means you feel necessary. So anyway, I just figured we'd talk a little bit while I put together another rock wall. Because some people are worrying. They worry about a lot of stuff. And they worry about a lot of stuff because they're dependent on somebody else providing it for them, and they're concerned that it'll be taken away or it won't be provided for them. But that's the thing, is we need to be self-responsible for a lot more things in our life. Like where's your food come from? Where does your shelter come from? Is somebody else providing it for you? So that means you have to compensate them, because they're the ones doing all the work to provide it. Even though you're doing work and a job, your job isn't promoting your independence. That's a cool. See, I just mined that. I found it on my property, and so I call it mine, right? So, like building all of these features here has really taught me a lot. I mean, and I think it's uh, important to share some of these things because there's a lot of people that don't create anything for themselves. And in the aspect of creation, there's a lot of things to learn and a lot of things to realize. And so you take these big pieces, these big rocks, and you you place them where they're going to create a foundation. And that foundation has to be strong to be able to support anything. So foundations come in many forms, right? And when we focus on creating something strong that won't just fall apart, we grow. And it'll stay that way for a long time. See, in every time we set a block, a rock, a foundation block, right? We check it. We say, hey, we analyze it. You know, like when we build, like if we have a position of power or influence that we're going to allow somebody to be in as a leader of a community or whatever. I mean, like this. I mean, all right. So this is going to be a foundation item for the things that come after it, right? So we have to make sure that it's pretty solid. And one of the things that I've noticed is in positions of influence, we haven't been too careful in who we've been allowing to control things or to dictate how things are going to be. You know, we allow actors and career politicians and rich businessmen that have really benefited off of the systems that they've helped create. So if they're helping to create a system that they've become powerful on, we have to at least ask the question, has it been for us? Or has it been for the few? Right? Because we are the many and they are the few. And I haven't, you know, I'm going to admit something because, you know, some people say that if you don't vote, you don't matter. You can't control what's going on. But I've never seen anybody on television that's competing for a position like presidency or really even governors and stuff that I want them to be my boss. I'm a pretty good boss of me. I like being my own boss. And so if I don't want that person to be the boss of me, I'm not going to vote and make them the boss of you because, well, I'm not going to push something on you that I don't want for me. That's what we should be. I think that's the foundation of freedom. You know, I mean, because if you're the boss of you and I'm the boss of me, and if you're doing life in a way that I'm inspired, you know, I used to get jealous of people, right? You know, because I look at what they're doing and I'm like, oh wow, you know, they have this or they have that, or they're experiencing this in life, or they've got this that I want to have. And one of my friends, I told him, I was like, man, I said, I'm so jealous of your life. I said, you are so free. I mean, he lives in a car, and well, he doesn't live in a car. He uses the car to transport himself from here to there, and but when he's going from here to there, when he gets to there, he unpacks his tent and his really nice sleeping bag, and I gave him a compression bag that I had in the military, and so you know he could fit like his sleeping bag and a coat and all this sort of stuff in it, and then he could really compress it down so that way he could keep it in his trunk easier, right? And I mean that gift of something that was it was something I wasn't using at the time, and it was something I could see that he really needed. So I just that's where it should go, right? And so I gave it to him, and he was like, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much! This makes my life so much easier." And I'm like, your life is already easy. You get to do everything you want. I said, but that's awesome that I was able to make it even easier with a simple gift, right? Yeah, he didn't even want much. I mean, he didn't even ask for nothing. He just never asked for anything. He said, "Hey, can I have a spot to put my tent?" When he came here and helped me on my property, and I was like, "Of course, yeah, of course, yeah, yeah." I mean, I got extra space, and so he stayed a few weeks, and then it was time that he just to go, go somewhere else. Starting to get cold. He's like, "Well, thanks, Rob. Heading south now," you know. And so he packed up his things in his car, and I mean, he was such a help here that I was able to give him a few bucks too, because, well, gosh, I mean, if I'm busting my ass for somebody, and if somebody gives me a little bit of money in exchange, that seems like a fair exchange. And so that's how simple life can be. But when I had told him that I'm jealous of your lifestyle, he said, "Don't be jealous, be inspired." He says you're healthy, and you're of pretty sound mind, right? You're pretty sane, and so you can do what I'm doing. He says you just have a lot more stuff right now. So if you wanted to sell off your stuff and buy a car, you could do that. But he said just be inspired. He says because we're all human beings, and we're all equally capable. Well, mostly equal capable of doing the things that we want to do. So, I mean, like all right. So there's a guy up on the hill that lives way over that way, and he inspired me because I'd be digging up stuff, right, and I'd find all these rocks, and I'm like, these rocks. What am I going to do with these? They're just in the way. And then I went up to his house, and it's built out of these, and I was like, well, that's smart. I mean, that's the way they did castles. I mean, people looked to kings and queens for inspiration and guidance and protection and all of these things that they were able to provide. And they built buildings, houses, castles out of rocks, and they glued them together with concrete. And sometimes they just did free stacking for walls and stuff like this, right? And so this guy up here on the hill, he's got, I don't know how many hundreds and hundreds of feet of free stack walls that are like vertical. I mean, they might lean back just a little bit, but they are near vertical, and it's just by paying attention. Instead of paying tuition, he paid attention, and he built his own house, and he's built his own property out of resources that are freely available. So he inspired me to start building a lot more of these rock walls. And when I first started building them, they weren't very good. I mean, they sometimes they'd fall over, or sometimes they'd collapse, or the dogs run over them or something, and they knock the rocks off. But when I paid attention and I sought to learn from somebody who knows, he said, "Oh, well, you can't just think of what you're doing right now." He says you got to think of the future too. And that reminds me of Native American teachings that you want to focus on the next 7 generations. Your child should benefit from the things that you've created, right? Because, well, I mean, if we love our children and if we love our grandchildren, we should promote their life being better than ours. And if there's something that we can do in our lifetimes to promote their lives being easier or more efficient, more sustainable, learning a way that makes it to where the human species isn't the only animals on the planet that pay to exist. I mean, because we have basically an animal body. I mean, you look at a monkey, or you look at really even like a kangaroo. I mean, sure, a kangaroo has a big tail, and the monkeys have more hair, but our body is pretty similar. I mean, look, I'm even I'm even sitting like them, right? And when we recognize that all of them know how to provide their own shelter, they know how to find their own food, they know how to take care of themselves where they don't need a doctor's appointment every couple months to maintain their health, we realize that we might be doing something wrong as humans because we're pretty intelligent, right? At least we're told we're the most intelligent on the planet. But yet we're paying somebody somewhere else to exist. So anyway, that's what I got to say about that. And so when you're building these walls, when you build this, you're not just taking into consideration this rock, right? You're taking into consideration that where that rock is sitting is going to have to support something else, right? So like that right there. Woohoo! I mean, that's kind of cool. That's just how it works. And when we start getting all of these foundation items in place, then we start to realize, all right, well, what's next? Well, there's leaders and there's followers, right? And so these are the leaders, and what supports these leaders isn't always seen, right? And like right now, you can't. I don't know. I don't know what you can see. The sun's shining on that screen. So, but what you can't see is what's going to be supporting it. And this support comes in the form of grains of sand and rocks and a bunch of little things that by themselves can't do a lot. But when they come together, they become a formidable force, and they can support all sorts of great things happening, right? Because that's how it works. That's just the way that it works. See, and then sometimes you gotta tamp it in a little bit. You know, you want to make sure it fills all the voids. And when we fill all these voids, it starts to support what we want to see. And if what we want to see is something that is beneficial for you and me, we're building a lifetime that might be sufficient, or it might promote the future generations in having a better way. I mean, because like if I build this wall in a way that it doesn't fall down, my daughter or my granddaughter won't have to rebuild it. They could focus on watering the raspberry bushes that are going to get planted here, and all the different plants that are now going to be able to be watered, and in this flat area, in a terrace that I'm creating, and it's my impression that that's the best gift that I can give them. I stopped buying the crap from the stores, even if it was on their wish list. I quit buying that stuff because I realize that most of those things are just wants. Those are things that they didn't actually need. They were just advertised to say, oh my gosh, I need that. I want that. And I used to be that way. And I had all sorts of things that I didn't need. And And then I realized that I didn't even want them after I had them for a little while. And so if at one time I wanted something, but then I realized that I didn't want it, it's obvious that I didn't need it. And we've been focused on wants for a long time, but we haven't focused much on needs. And needs are actually really easy to provide. I mean, I'm right now, right now I'm providing for the needs of a few people, right? And it's because they're, for whatever reason, they're incapable of providing for themselves. And for them, it's either a health issue, either mental health or physical health, or perhaps it's some sort of struggle that they haven't yet made it past. And so I help them out. I help them out, and I try to show people. I try to show people what love is, because love is helping somebody without the expectation of a return. Yes, I would like people to try to give back what they can, because that's how nature works. It's reciprocal, right? If the wind always blows one way, I don't know if that's the right way to look at that. It's always everything. If the tides don't always rise, right? Sometimes the tides rise over here, and sometimes the tides rise over here, right? Because it's an ebb and a flow, and that's how nature grows. There's an ebb and a flow of life. Like a tree. A tree is going to grow, but eventually it's going to die, or the wind is going to knock it down. And when it gets knocked down, it becomes the fuel or the fertilizer for future generations. It decomposes. It goes back into the ground. So a friend of mine stopped by yesterday. I hadn't seen him in a while because, we had a little bit of a difference. I helped him out, but then he wasn't yet ready to. He wasn't yet ready for the help, and so I kept him from drowning. But I wasn't providing his wants, right? And so he went elsewhere, and he came back. And when he came back, he's doing a lot better than what he was before. And so we went to lunch, and he wanted to try to repay me. He says I'd be dead if it wasn't for you, Rob. He says, I want to thank you. And he says, I want to let you know that I've helped others in a way that you've helped me. So, yeah, pretty powerful. We have to trust that what we do in life, we're not always going to see an immediate benefit for it. But if we trust that if we're just doing the best that we know how all the time, that it has rewards. And sometimes the rewards aren't seen right away. Maybe they don't show up for a year or 10 or 20. But you got to trust that if we do what's right and we do what's in our heart, that it comes back to us. And it comes back to us in beautiful ways. To see somebody thriving who is barely surviving is a really great gift. And I don't have a lot of money. I mean, what I do with my ministry here is not yet really being supported by many. Um, but I know that my needs are so few that I'm taken care of. I mean, really, I mean, like my friend with the car and the real minimalist lifestyle, he kind of showed me that, how little we need to be happy and healthy and productive and abundant in life. And so I know that if all I have is a backpack, well, I don't even really need a backpack, but it makes it easier to carry some of the favorite things you like around, you know. But we don't need a giant house, and we don't need an expensive car, and we don't need all the toys that advertising tells us that we need to be happy. Right now, I'm happy. I mean, I'm sharing with you. Hopefully, hopefully somebody's going to watch this. But and it's creating my health, right? I mean, because moving rocks, they're kind of heavy. I mean, like this one, not so much. This one is pretty heavy, and so you move around a lot of the rocks like this, and you get stronger muscles, right? And so if you get stronger muscles, you have your lymphatic system, which is integral into your immune system, and it's helping to push away any toxins that you gather from your environment. And when you start to push out the toxins, the toxicity that's in your body, we have a lot with the standard American diet and the standard American dream and all of these things that we've been told are normal might not be healthy. So we do what makes sense rather than making dollars for somebody else. Somebody somewhere else paid for the advertising to get people thinking and acting a certain way, right? Because that's what makes a lot of money. I mean, it works. It's been proven for a long time that is a way to create a lot of money. So you can see I'm putting like that rocks too much, right? And so there's probably a better place for it. Just like when you look at life, if there's a lot of struggle in where you're at, you might not be in the right place, right? I mean, I've had areas of my life that I didn't like, so I changed it and I moved. And I said, all right, well, this place isn't for me anymore, and so I left. I was like, well, must be supposed to be somewhere else. And then I moved here to Washington, and I realized that, wow, this place needs some help. It's been run by politicians for a long time, and these politicians haven't been focused as much on the wellness of people as they have been the benefit of corporations. I mean, it's, a great place for companies like Boeing to have a place to do business, right? And they've made billions of dollars. Well, I'm assuming billions. They've been doing it for a long time. They got government contracts, so government contracts usually equal a lot of money. That's why people do it. I mean, I was in the military for 9 years, and I realized how government works. And so every contract that I've entered into the military as a private contractor, or every contract I've entered with the government, right? As a private contractor, I realized that if you don't charge enough, they won't pick you, because they have a lot of money to spend, and they got to find places to spend it that they can do it quickly, because they don't have the time or the manpower to spend as much money efficiently as the money they have available to them, right? And if you're spending it efficiently, it takes a little bit longer to make sure that everything's done right and everything. But if you charge a lot of money, they're going to just assume that that's going to be the best way it's done. So even though I was able to do a job for much less than the bid, you have to bid it really high in order to get the contract. So, I couldn't keep doing that though. And so I actually closed my business, and I started focusing on what I feel is more important. And what I feel is more important is what I share with my ministry: how to create healthy, happy people and landscape that produces food locally. Because you can either buy your food at a place called the Gross Restore for a fee, or you can grow your food locally at the source for free. Now phonetically, those both sound pretty similar, but the implications are outrageous, right? I mean, because I did go to the store the other day, and it was over $100, and I didn't even fill up the cart. And but a lot of the times, I just go, I walk around, and I'm able to pick something from here and pick something from there, and then grab a little of this and grab a little of that, and then I can make myself like a smoothie or a salad, or I mean, and I don't eat meat, but if it really came down to it in the wintertime, all of these foods that I've been growing in the summertime, they produce seeds, and they do all this kind of stuff that the birds like. And so if I really needed to eat something, I could go out and I could grab a bird or a squirrel or a rabbit or a deer. But although I used to hunt, I don't really believe in killing anymore. There's just something about it. I mean, the first time I killed, I felt bad about it. But because it was normal and popular and supported and encouraged by everybody around me, I kept doing it. And a few years ago, I just came to the point that I'm like, you know what? I need to return back to what I was before I was being encouraged to kill and to consume the flesh of other living beings. And so now I feel like I'm a lot healthier. I'm happier. I don't have I try not to do any harm, so it's like a harm reduction. And I'm not saying that I don't harm anything with any of my actions, because it's a process. I mean, we're living in a culture shaped by television programming and idols and ideas of what's normal, and some of those are kind of dark. So anyway, I think I've rambled enough. So let's see if I can turn this thing off.